we attribute way too much reasoning and intelligence to generative AI, right? And I think people are finally starting to wake up to that these LLMs, these large language models, things like ChatGPT, they're capable tools, they're fun tools to use. They've got a lot of advantages, but they are not a generalized intelligence. In fact, what the reality is, because I know what's happening under the covers, it really doesn't have any intelligence at all. Generative AI, all the intelligence, we're ascribing that intelligence to it. We are projecting that intelligence onto it, which it doesn't deserve. It is effectively a pattern matching engine. It's a very capable autocomplete. And that's really it. It's very good at picking the next word. In fact, I get really nervous then with the focus right now around these agentic AI is solely focused, it seems like, around generative AI right now. That makes me really nervous because it's been proven not to be able to reason in even the simplest of senses. So what that generative AI, that agentic play is around generative AI today is effectively what you're doing is you're asking the generative AI, and does this behind the scenes, but you're asking the generative AI to accomplish a task. Well, what it does behind the scene is it makes a script, it makes a recipe. Right. And then it follows that script. Well, with what we've seen around its inability to reason, what we've seen with the prevalence of hallucinations, even on the newest versions of some of these LLMs, we're seeing hallucinations pretty regularly. I don't know if you are, but I think most people are seeing still. And honestly, we may determine that hallucinations are just so fundamental to the underlying transformer architecture that maybe we will never be able to get away from hallucinations completely, right? But with that all in mind, the thought of it generating a script and then following it, and we're giving it the ability then to actually run code, and we're giving it the ability to call services on our behalf, I get very, very nervous. So to get back to your original question, though, how is that different than autonomous AI? Autonomous AI is a completely different technology under the covers. It's not transformers. It's a technology called deep reinforcement learning. And this is what came out of, if you remember, DeepMind. It was in like the 2016, 2017. It was that Google spinoff. That's what is underlying autonomous AI. It's a completely different type of AI. It learns differently, and it actually has been proven to be able to understand causal connections. So it can actually reason. This is the same technology that, if you remember, beat our best grand champions at the game of Go, beat our best chess players, beat our best StarCraft players. So it's been proven to be able to reason its way out of difficult situations and even be able to adapt to novel situations that it didn't see during training. So that really, the way I look at it is the types of problems that we face on the plant floor are primarily operational problems. So let's use an operational AI. Autonomous AI is there to solve operational problems. It's very, very good at acting like an expert operator on the line. The types of problems that generative AI is good at is solving knowledge problems, right? And we have some of those on the plant floor, particularly around maintenance, but primarily the problems we have on the plant floor are operational. So let's use the right technology, the right AI for the right approach is kind of right.
Hey, I'm Nate Wheeler. I am the host of Manufacturing Insiders Podcast. Really want to thank you for joining today. I hope that you learned some really great insights from this manufacturing leader that you're about to hear from. I also hope that you'll go ahead and hit that like button on the video and subscribe to our channel so you can see more of the stuff that comes out as we're continuing to publish content. Every like, every subscribe really helps us get this message out. And the message that we're sharing is really just a message of hope for manufacturers. I understand, I work with you guys every day. I understand how many different obstacles are in your faces, from technology to government regulations to competition from foreign and domestic markets. And I really want to share strategies with you on how to deal with these issues. And I think there's no better way to learn than hearing directly from somebody that solves some of these challenges. Thanks for watching today, and look forward to seeing you soon. So can you maybe walk me through an example of, the operational, I keep forgetting the reinforcement learning.
Yeah, deep reinforcement learning, autonomous AI.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. How would that work in practice? Like, who's using that?
Yeah. So, and I'll give you a use case here. So we've got a glass bottle manufacturer, right? And so these are world leaders. It's a name that we would all know, but they are world leaders in making glass bottles. And so they had on their glass bottle line, on one of their lines, they had a problem. And the issue was that the process was very finicky. It was very drifty, and so they would get dialed in, but then it had a tendency to drift where they're not making on-spec bottles anymore. And part of the challenge was to move all the knobs and change the parameters to bring that process back to making good on-spec bottles, right? And they really only had 2 expert operators who were the best in the world at being able to get back to making on-spec bottles. So it took, depending on who the operator was, it would take them anywhere from 7 minutes to 20 minutes to get back to making on-spec bottles if the process drifted, right? And it took a light touch. So even if you got back to good, if you weren't real careful about how you adjusted settings and you really stayed on, if you went to lunch for an hour and you came back, it'd be making bad bottles, right? It was that, it really took a constant effort. And so that's a problem when you're trying to run, 24/7. And so so we came in and we built for them an autonomous AI agent. So our agent, and the way we built it, you asked about kind of how we do this approach. So we took their historical data. Okay, so they had a process historian. They had years of data. So we took that data, and with that, we built a simulation of the real world. It's called a data-driven model. It's a simulation of the real world built on real-world data. And with that data-driven model, that's ultimately what the autonomous AI agent needs to learn from. So it has to learn in some kind of a simulation. So this was a real-world simulation we built with their real-world data. And then we also give it through a process called machine teaching. That's where we sit down with those 2 experts and we say, hey, how did you get so good at this? And they'll say, well, when it does this, then we do this. Or when we see this particular pattern, then we tend to do this, right? Yeah. And so we captured all of that through a process called machine teaching. And we fed that into the autonomous AI agent as well. So now it's got a simulated environment and it's got kind of a starting workflow playbook on how to accomplish its tasks. Yep. And then we give it what are called reward and penalty functions. So reward it when it's advancing towards a goal, penalize it when it's moving away from the goal. And that's really all it needs. It's not as hard as it sounds. Like there are obvious metrics for, hey, you're moving towards making good bottles versus you're moving away from making good bottles. And so building those functions is actually pretty straightforward. So it's a little bit of an art and a science, but yeah, we're pretty good at building those reward and penalty functions. So That's really all it needs. And then you let it loose. This thing trains in the cloud, takes a decent amount of resources to train, not like LLM level resources, but it trains for about a day in the cloud. By the time it's done training, though, it's like that autonomous AI agent has worked that part of the process for 20 to 30 human years. Wow. So by the time we were done, our autonomous AI agent, I told you, it takes their experts anywhere from 7 to 20 minutes to get back to making on-spec bottles. Our agent has never taken longer than 5 minutes, and on average takes about 2 minutes to get back to making on-spec bottles. So it's about a 50% improvement over that. I mean, that's 50% less time that you're making bad bottles, right? That's a huge ROI for them.
Yeah, that is huge. Yeah, that's a really, really good example. So then this AI model is then telling a less experienced operator perhaps that turn this knob this much, do this, do that, and okay.
Yeah, and here's the thing: how can it get? So how is it so? Because again, it's not controlling it directly. Just like you said, there's a human in the loop who has to actually take those recommendations, right? So how is it that it's able to get back to making on-spec bottles so fast? Well, here's why. So when a human is faced with a problem like that, what do? They tend to move one knob and then they kind of guess and check, and then they move another knob, and it's making bottles every 2 seconds. This is a very fast process. So they guess and check, and then they move a knob, and then they see if that improves it. If that didn't work, they put it back, and then they move a different knob, right? So that's how humans, try to fix problems like that. The autonomous AI doesn't work anything like that. The autonomous AI just moves all the knobs at once because it's already mapped out the trajectory to get back to making on-spec bottles. Yep. So in a matter of just a handful of moves, it's able to get everything back to making on-spec bottles. So that's the difference between how a human approaches a problem like that and how the autonomous AI is able to reason out a path and map out a path to get back to good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such a great example because I think it's very easily transferred to a million different scenarios. Like you're machining a part and you're getting some deflection occurring and it's creating some sort of distortion in the machining. And and so then this model could understand that and then adjust the machine or tell you how to adjust the machine right off the bat instead of having to have 30 years of experience.
100%. And let's say, so for that specific example, minus AI, how are you going to solve that? Well, you're probably going to go to that 20 or 30-year guy or gal, right? You're going to say, hey, I'm getting deflection constantly on these parts. Like, what am I doing wrong? Do I have a setting wrong? Can you come take a look at it, right? Well, by the way, those people are leaving the industry. So we have a giant brain drain right now, where primarily baby boomers are leaving our industry in droves. We are losing massive amounts of expertise. So those people, a lot of times, are becoming harder and harder to find. But it will solve, the autonomous AI will solve that problem in the same way that that expert person will, right?
Yep.
So again, they have, because it's run effectively for so long in the simulation, it's seen everything. And it goes, oh, I know exactly. Yeah, here's what you're doing wrong. You're using this particular material with this heat and this parameter and yada, yada, yada. And if you change these things, then to compensate for that, then boom, now you're back to making good product. It's the same way that a human solves those types of problems. And so back to that expertise loss, that's the primary driver, I would say, right now behind why my customers are looking to adopt AI, because they're like, look, we don't have these people anymore. They're like, we've got high turnover in these positions now. We've got 6-month, 1-year people, where before we had a 15-year person running that plant or that asset. It's a real problem. And so, AI is not the whole story, but it's a big part of the story about how we're going to become more competitive in the future, particularly in the US workforce.